Welcome back to Kettlebells and Cocktails. I'm your host, John, back with my bestie, Nikki. Nikki, how are you?
I'm good. Tonight's one of those nights where I'm like, I can't believe I even made it to 8:30 because Hunter was up at like 5 a.m. And I'm
Right?
like, how, like, I lived an entire lifetime before Matt even woke up and I had to go to work. You know what I
Man,
mean? Like the morning
yeah,
hours were like, whew, we did so
I was up at
much.
I was up at 5 a.m. You should have just FaceTimed me and I could have talked to him the whole time.
It would have been great. I would have been like, talk to
I
your
know,
Uncle
right?
John while mommy sleeps for another 20 minutes, please.
I
God.
know. I've got this new thing now where I get up early and I just go walking. I'm finding that if I get up in the morning and get some morning sun, I just feel better the rest of the day.
I
Plus,
love that.
I'm trying to get steps in, which I know most CrossFitters are like, "Oh, what a wuss, he's getting steps." But there's, like, real scientific proof that if you
Oh,
get
yeah.
10,000 or more steps a day, it's, like, a big deal,
Oh, for
and
sure. Yeah. So, like, one day randomly this past week, I woke up before everyone, like half an hour before everyone. And I was like, amazing. I'm going to go hop on the Peloton treadmill and do a little run walk to get my day started. And I felt amazing. And I told Matt, I was like, it'll be really interesting to see if I can like motivate my ass to get up in the morning and do that shit.
mm,
Or if we're going to look back on this as like the one time Nikki woke up and ran at 6:30 in the morning.
right,
We'll see.
right.
To be determined, but I'm with you on the steps. I think like a solid little walk in the morning is like a lovely way to
I
get
think
yourself
I think
going.
our guest is all in on this because she's, like, waving her whoop at me or her
My
step
my
meter.
Apple Watch.
There you go. We have Sarah Perry, CrossFit Games athlete with us. Sarah, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on here.
You count your steps? You're into the step
Oh,
thing?
totally. When that ring closes and you get the little "you did it" kind of thing,
Yeah.
it's just like you feel so much better and so much more set up for your day. So I totally hear you
Right.
guys on that one.
Okay, but
Give me
do you ever forget to wear your watch or it like needs to be charged and then you don't wear it during your workout and then at the end of the day it's like you can still do it and I'm like, "Nah, bitch, I did a 30-minute
right.
AMRAP. Like I did it. Do not tell me that I did not do it."
Or you forget to press start and you're
Uh-huh.
wearing it. Even
Here's
It's
what happened to me.
supposed to tell you though. What happened to you?
Well, here's what happened to me. So, same thing yesterday. I forgot to have it on for a period. I took it off to shower and didn't put it back on. And I was like right at the end of my day, and I had like 8,000 steps. And I'm like, and it was dark out. It's like 8:30 at night. I'm like, this sucks. So I went down to the
Mm,
basement, got on my assault runner
yep. Yep.
because I'm one of those. Yeah, I got to complete things. Like I
I
have
feel
to
you.
complete them.
Yep.
I hear
It
you.
I feel
drives
you.
me crazy.
Wait,
Absolutely
so
drives
I'm
me
not the
crazy.
only one because you know how you can like swim laps in your Apple Watch, but I still take mine off
Yeah.
in the shower. I'm not the
I
only
Hey,
mean,
one.
you can keep it on if you want.
You can.
It's only to like it just feels weird though. You're like, I'm gonna
I
put in my
know.
watch. It's
Totally.
yeah,
Totally. And also like the band under the band gets so stinky. So I'm
it
like,
does.
I need to
It
scrub my
does.
yeah.
arm.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd wear your watch in the shower. I'm sure somebody's listening going, "That John's judging me for wearing my watch in the shower." I am not. I'm all
You'll
for it. If
get hate mail.
you want a stinky wrist, knock yourself out. It means
Have
nothing to
fun.
me. But
You should
Truly
make
have
another meme where it's like CrossFitters when they need to complete their rings and take a shower and or to use their watch in the shower.
vigorously scrubbing in
I
the shower
know.
to get steps. That's probably
Mm,
true.
that's
100%.
that's the least dirtiest way you could have come up with that meme too. That's good. I had other ideas and they were not as appropriate.
She'll be here all night. Just
She
Exactly.
will.
saying.
It is funny that you mentioned the rings close thing though, because I'd never really thought of that, but I do get that little euphoric feeling when it
Mhm.
goes, "Exercise ring closed." It happened this morning on my morning walk of all things. I'm like, maybe I should set the exercise target a little higher if it's going off after a 3-mile walk."
It's
But
fair. It's like 25 minutes of movement or something like that between 20 and 30, which I think is totally fair to aim for every
Yeah.
day. Just
As long as
well,
you
it was a
activity.
aim.
Yeah.
yeah, it was a long walk too. It was a 45-minute walk, so it wasn't like it was short.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Long
Anyway,
strides.
Well, I feel
long
like our
strides.
our walks and run walks and your steps on the assault runner in the evenings are kind of like child's play in comparison to everything that Sarah has been through, especially recently competing at the games.
I know. No doubt. No
No
doubt.
doubt. So I would love to know, Sarah, I stalked your Instagram. I know that you did like a couple posts looking back on the week and it's kind of hard to sum up, but with a little bit of perspective now, it's been about a month. I would love to know just what that entire experience was like for you, especially culminating on the podium. I mean, it's a big freaking deal.
Oh, yeah, totally. And the experience was amazing. Coming back home and people asking me, what was your favorite part or what was the highlight of your trip? Just to kind of summarize it, was meeting all the people. So the athletes were incredible, just absolutely incredible. Like I met a bunch of them after my award ceremony when I got my medal, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like you got a medal, like that's incredible." And then I shared a little bit about myself. So I'll do that with you guys as well. So I'm in the vision category for the CrossFit Games, and I placed third on the podium this year. So third in the world and first in Canada. Very, very proud to represent. The CrossFit Games was an incredible experience. I don't know where to start. I'm speechless, right? So it was my first year competing in the open. So unfortunately, we don't actually get to move on after the open. So there are no steps after that for us, which is a little mind-boggling for me because there's so many other steps. There's semifinals, quarterfinals, and then the games. I work out in the same gym as Emily Rolfe, so we work alongside each other. I don't know if anybody out there knows who that is. So she came in
Oh,
12th this year.
No, we're
big friend of
familiar.
our show. Yes, we
Yes,
love
yes,
him.
We love her.
yes. Em's the best. She's like a sister to me. We go to the gym together. I unfortunately can't drive due to the brain cancer. So I have blindness from brain cancer, 75% blind. I lost my vision when I was 5 years old and have had to adapt since then. I found the sport of CrossFit because I wasn't able to take any other sports. So no contact sports, no ball sports, couldn't participate in gym, endured tons of bullying from kids to teachers to adults to parents. And so I came across CrossFit one day and I thought to myself, actually, I watched one of the CrossFit Games documentaries on Netflix, and that's how I was inspired. A girlfriend of mine took me to my first class, and then I was like, this is awesome. Like, you get to do everything. You get to lift weights, you get to do cardio, and you get to do everything. And so shortly after I had watched one of the Netflix documentaries, I think it was back in 2018 or 2019. And I was sitting there watching and I thought to myself, I want to do that. That was awesome. These girls, these men and women and these boys and girls are so strong. They're so incredible. I want to get there. I'm going to get there and I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that. And so this past year during the open, my mom encouraged me. She said, you should go in the vision category. You know, you're 75% blind. Something was taken away from you. You've had to live with this disability since you were 5. Go for it. I said, oh, okay. Why not? I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a try. And I did. And by complete fluke, I ended up coming third. And I got an email that said, hey, we want to invite you to the CrossFit Games. You placed third. And just looking at my ranking and seeing it like on my phone or like on a screen, it was incredible.
It doesn't sound like a fluke. I
It's
could tell
definitely
you,
not a
it
fluke.
sounds like a very well-deserved placement, all things considering. The Open was no joke this year.
Oh, and you know what? It's funny you say that, Nikki, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, like, were there any changes, like, for the visual or, like, anything that was easier?" Nothing was easier. If anything, I think it was harder
Yeah.
because in the open, there were wall balls, and instead of wall balls, we had to do thrusters.
No,
And
I'm all set with that. No
so
way.
so
No
so
way.
I was like, "Oh, this is crazy." And I have I'd been training for so long that people are like, "Sarah, what are you training for?" And I was like, "I don't know, like, I'm just training. I just love what I do, and I love this." And people were like, "Well, you should go into competitions." And I thought, I would love to, but the only problem is that when I go into competitions, I'm up against people who aren't necessarily going through the same thing as me. So, I have adapted since I was 5, so it doesn't look like I'm 75% blind. So people, approach me and they go, "Hey, like, you didn't wave at us or you didn't see us, but you look perfectly normal." And I said, "Well, that's because I do have a disability. I am blind." And so going into competitions, it's difficult because I'm not seen as an individual with a disability per se.
That's very interesting. That's so I have questions about
Of
that
course.
because
Of course.
that perception, I feel like, could kind of go either way, like, sometimes has pros and cons. So I would love to have a better understanding from you, like, what does it mean to you that you have this disability, and in a way, it is a part of you, it is a part of your story, it is a showing of your strength ever since you were a child, but in another way, you don't wanna be defined by it, but in another way, it is nice to be acknowledged for it. Like, you should it's not fair for someone to be like, "Well, you look fine." Like, that's so crass, but,
Right,
like,
right.
true. Like, it just seems really complex, like, all the ways to view your situation.
Right, and totally, like, you hit the nail right on the head. It's almost like a double-edged sword, right? So, eh, people are like, "Oh, you look perfectly normal," and I'm like, "Thank you, I guess
Whatever the
that's a
fuck
call."
that means.
Oh, yeah, I guess, but I'm still struggling on a day-to-day basis with the world. So, everything is constantly evolving, things are changing, people are so busy. People are running back and forth to work, and I can't drive, so I take transit. And people are like, "Well, don't you have, like, a guide dog or, like, a cane or, like, don't you?" And I'm
Like
like,
like, insert stereotypical blind stuff
uh,
here. Like, they like
immediately." Yeah, yeah, immediately, right? So and it it's difficult, right? Like, do you the people you see on a daily day-to-day basis, pardon me, I if all of a sudden you start showing up in an area that you're familiar with this tool, how do you explain that, right? And so that's the part where I struggle with. I also struggled a lot with when I was younger accepting my disability. So
hmm.
I think that's a big thing in society is that you need to learn to accept yourself and then society will accept you. So people are like, "Oh, well, society accepts you. You should accept yourself." Well, no, and actually, it actually comes from you first, and then that's when you see everything else kind of fall into place. Yeah, so very kind of like it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? So some people will say, "Well, no, it's not good," and some people will say, "No, it's not bad," but that's the way the world works.
Yeah, it's
You know,
complicated.
Yeah,
if someone asked me if I had a cane, I'd go get one just so I could hit them with it, I'll be
Yeah.
honest. It'd be my thing.
exactly. The
W
over the
in the
head.
in the category
Don't you
you're
think
in the
a guide
games,
dog?
what's
Yes, I do. It will bite you.
yes. Yeah, you should. Get a big Rottweiler. In the division you're in, what's the kind of minimum limit blindness? Because I know it varies from athlete to athlete.
Right. Great question. And I have to say that CrossFit made this extremely difficult.
Right, this was a
And
new
Yeah,
thing
I've
like
heard
here.
that.
like
Yeah.
it was such a pain. And I thought, man, you would think that these people would make it easier for the people who do have a disability. And so it went by percentage. Sorry, no, it pardon me, it went by degree. So it went by degree of what of each eye. So from my knowledge, I don't have much knowledge in the visual field aspect. I am more the patient rather than the doctor. So whenever I got a visual field, it was more of uh percent of vision in eye. So kind of to give you guys an idea, if you cover up your left eye with your hand and then half of your right eye, that is what I see and function with. So I have no peripheral vision in my right and then zero vision in my left.
Oh, shit. That's terrible. I'm just testing it out, and it's, like, very specific. It's like you gotta
Yes.
really figure out how to tilt, how to yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things is that, like, people are like, "Well, how do you do things in CrossFit?" Like, I was like, again, adapting,
Yeah.
but also, like, scanning all the way across the room. Like, if somebody's coming from my either side, I can't see them, so I have to make sure I'm scanning. But getting back to John's question, it was by degree, and I thought that's such an like, when you're given a visual field, which I've had hundreds of them over the years, I've never once had a degree, and I thought, "How am I gonna do this?" Like, I even called my doctors and I went, "How do you read this in degrees?" Like, it's always percent of vision in eye, but
Yeah,
that's
it's
how
a
they
very interesting division that way. I met a lot of the athletes in that division at Wheelwad, a year ago, a little less than a year ago.
right,
And Erica, who won this year, was at that. She won that competition too, and her she has partial vision, but
right.
then Kimberly, I forget her last name, Drexel or something like that, also an amazing athlete, is completely blind. Like, her
Right,
husband's, like, leading her around, and so it was a really
right.
interesting division to watch where some had partial vision, some had absolutely no vision, and to the point of your question, Nikki, like, trying to watch the adaptation that is required is really, really interesting. You know, as an example, they're rowing a lot, so trying to figure out how many meters you're going when you can't physically see the monitor is really difficult and an interesting adaptation to watch.
Mhm.
And even double unders becomes really kind of wild when you as someone who does a lot of double unders, like, I never think about looking at my hands and my feet and the rope, but I am. I'm not thinking about it. And so watching the vision athletes do it and having to adapt to it is just it's really you're just reminded of how challenging it really is.
Are there different resources that become available to you guys out on the competition floor? Like someone who might not be able to see the monitor, is your judge calling out your meters by the 50s or something along those lines?
Right, yeah, so great question as well. I have definitely and just in general over time, and I wanted to touch base on this because I wanted to make this something a little bit more well known to the vision category in actually all sports. To kind of veer away from your question really quick, Nikki, I actually applied for the Paralympic rowing, um, which was awesome. Right, it was amazing. And then somebody who wasn't blind had told me that I wasn't blind enough. So somebody who's fully sighted, right, was like, "No, you're not blind enough." And I was like, "What? Like
What does that mean?
what does that mean, right?" And then so that's why I'm so grateful that this opportunity came up in CrossFit. But then it's like, do you go into the you can go into the normal Olympics, but you can't go into the Paralympics. So where do you fall, right? And so I'm just so kind of I still think about that, and it still kind of floats around in my head, and I think, how how can we better how can we better this with somebody who's telling you how much you can and can't see? And back to your question, Nikki. For me, CrossFit was always about kind of feel. So I use a lot of my hearing and a lot of my feel. At competitions, I find that when you let somebody know, I've met really, really amazing, fantastic people who have volunteered their time to judge or whatnot, and really understanding coaches. And then I've also come across people who have no idea what to do or have no idea how to handle the situation. And now this comes again to CrossFit, where what do you do? How do you, again, about inclusion? How do you include these athletes? How do you take the time to train people to do this? Yeah.
There's still like a lot of questions. There's still a lot that we can learn from the last few years because I do think that we're on the right trajectory, but a lot of work to be done to really
Oh,
make sure that
totally.
we're supplying everyone with everything that they need to be successful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
there's the struggle is a lot of this, they're just learning as they go. Like,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
I'm giving them some defense here. Like I was talking to Stouty and people go, "What?" Like in the first couple of years, they were having athletes do wall balls, and then quickly figured out that's really not a good movement for the
Repair.
division group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can just think about what that would look like literally just taking balls to the head. It's just not fun.
Yeah.
And then even in this last competition, not everybody had someone that could call out their meters for them. And so thinking about should we be reaching out to like I actually reached out to Assault Bike and talked to the owner and said, "Hey, if you guys had a monitor that would audibly call out meters and calories, it would be an amazing
Mhm.
thing for these athletes." And they had never even considered it. And C2 will actually do that. They have an app that you can sync up and
Cool.
it'll call out meters and calories. So it's just interesting that they're kind of learning these things as they go, and hopefully as it continues to evolve. And I hope as more people get the opportunity to understand that people like yourself are competing, Sarah, that they're going to want to get out and compete as well and grow this division. So
Oh,
you're competing, you're really blazing a trail for a lot of other
Yeah.
people. So what with all
Tom
the frustration you're having, don't forget that for
so
sure.
Tom had said that on the show, and we had him on a couple weeks ago, and that I really resonated with me because I know that there's a lot of division in within the division on
Right.
people who are happy with the way that things are going or unhappy because there are so many improvements that still need to be made. And Tom's point was really like, we have to keep showing up and competing in the thing, even if it's not perfect, because we
mhm,
have to keep telling them and giving them the feedback of what needs to change.
right.
And it's just, I can totally see from an adaptive athlete's perspective how difficult that decision must be to be like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the trailblazer to John's point
Right.
because the entire community needs this. They need me to get up on the podium and then be like, hey, CrossFit, by the way, here's like what you need to learn from this experience, from my experience. But I also understand being like, this shit is not being run right. Why would I participate? Like, I get it. It's tough. Oh,
Well, yeah, and you make a good point, Nikki, too. Like when I was like just, first time at the podium, I could see it was incredible. I met this guy, Lance. He's in the intellectual division, and I'm seeing all these athletes, and they're so excited, and I'm there, and I'm looking, and I'm going, okay, this is really awesome. Like this is their time to shine. They have worked so hard. If I can say that I worked hard, I can't imagine what these other athletes have endured and have worked for, and their determination to get here. But my podium experience, I have to say, I was so choked because there was no guidance of what to do. You've
oh,
got blind people, you've got wheelchair people, you've got intellectual, and you've got short stature. And so all the athletes who were upper and lower extremity were all lined up before us. And we were to the side because we didn't compete further than the open. And we were kind of just like shoved over while all the other athletes had their 1, 2, and 3 jersey. Now, believe it or not, we were given a box of generic t-shirts, like plain camo shirts. And I would just watched, right? I just watched everything, and I watched all these athletes go, "Hey, like we want like the first, second, and third. Like where's ours?" And people are so proud, and they're jumping up and down, and I thought, man, this is like really odd. Like, why are we just sort of to the side? And there were these 2 volunteers that were there, and they had no idea like how to do anything, had a box of t-shirts and went, "Here, guys, find your size." And I
ooh,
I was so shocked, right? Because I thought, this is really, really odd. Like where like I thought we were supposed to have like first, second, and third. We worked so hard, and even somebody went over to a guy and said, "Hey, you've got a box of like the first, second, and third. Can we get one of those?" He was like, "No, these are only for the podium athletes." And we were like,
pretty sure that's us, bro.
Yeah.
and I thought that was funny because where is the accessibility? Where is the inclusion? I talked to an athlete who is in a wheelchair, and her coach were like, "Yeah, don't don't bother saying anything. We've already tried." And that absolutely, it's like broke my heart, because I was like, the fact that they've said, like, tried so many times and said so many things, and they're like, just don't try. And I thought, that that's not the right way to go about things. And so
Yeah.
I'm so thankful to you and John that I could hop on here, and you got to be a voice and an advocate for these people, because they are living a day-to-day life with this disability. The elite athletes, I get it, they train hard. I watch Emily and I see her train, but they have to live and perform with these disabilities, right? So,
That really
um,
just takes the fitness level to the extreme when you really think about it, truly.
oh, totally,
Yeah,
totally.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that they're gonna get this together, Sarah, for whatever that's worth. I mean, if you look back on the year, and I'm not trying to make excuses for CrossFit. I've
Oh
been
no,
a pretty loud, I'm just gonna call myself a complainer about how they've handled the adaptive community, but I've certainly criticized them for it. And but when I look at some of the changes they've made, they had some turnover. They laid off some people in that group a few weeks out before the games. I forget exactly how far it was. So I'm sure that didn't help. And to your point, like, this was the first year they had required all the medical testing that you were mentioning earlier. So I think there was some struggle there of really understanding how much that was going to frustrate people, to say the least. And I think we've talked about it on the show before. There was definitely some cutbacks this year in the games of where they were spending money, and that obviously impacted what you guys had. But I think the positives that I've seen, it was that they've brought in kind of the wheelwad crew was brought in to run the games, and it looks like they're going to stick around to do more. And now there's talk of breaking off the age group and adaptives into their own competitions. And so if that happens, as much as I would prefer to see age group and adaptives at the actual elite games getting as much face time as possible, I do think if you
right,
want to grow adaptives, having them separated could be a good idea and give you an
Yeah.
opportunity to actually do a live competition in front of a crowd and get live streaming. And like Nikki and I have talked about coming and doing uh, doing a live stream from there and interviewing athletes and like giving you the full experience. So I think it could be a good thing. So I've got some hope that this is going to get fixed. But to your point, I've heard that already from some of the athletes about the podium experience not exactly living up to what we wanted it to be. So that's disappointing,
yeah,
to say
for
the
sure,
least.
for
Well,
sure, yeah.
if Nikki and I end up at Willwad and you're there, we'll give you the podium experience. We'll bring you a
Fantastic.
couple.
I will handcraft you a 3rd place t-shirt. I'm really good at
Yes,
iron on letters. I got a toddler,
Yes.
loves
we got
art.
you.
You will scribble all over that shirt for you. It'll be one of a kind.
Perfect. It'll be
Hey,
exclusive. Yep.
when you're training with Emily, you don't do Kyle's training, do you? You don't. He doesn't torture you like he does her, does he?
Actually, yes.
Does he?
He does. Yes.
That's why you're so fit.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You know what? And Emily's been such an inspiration. And actually, Emily and Kyle are kind of like like I would say, like aunt and uncle or older brother and sister to me. So supportive, so excellent. I actually take some of M's photos. It's funny because people are like, aren't you blind? And I'm like, yes, but I can still take photos.
Right.
Yeah.
I can
You
still
know,
point a
like,
phone. Thank you.
well, yeah, and or a camera, and you can do so much more than you think you can. You just got to put your mind to it. I know that's super corny, but you really do. And if you have a little bit of determination and help, so lots of support. I have to say, I had a fundraiser to get me to the games, because it was actually more expensive to get to the games than what I received as a prize. Much, much, much more expensive.
Damn.
Yeah, the it's funny because when I watched the award ceremonies for the elites, they were like, "Yeah, like over $300,000." I was like, "We got $1,000 or $2,000," which was like, "Hey, I'm grateful. It'll pay next month's rent." But it's
It's a
it's
tough pill
just
to swallow.
it
Yeah.
is, and it's difficult because some people will be like, you should be grateful. And then some people were like, oh, isn't that a kick in the face? And you're torn between, should I be grateful or should I, right? So, and I am. I'm very, very grateful, and it was such a wonderful experience. And I was so lucky to meet somebody who took photos of me because the other athletes didn't get photos. They
Hmm.
got like nothing.
Mm.
And I was like, that's just really, it was unfortunate to say
It's
the
a
least.
bummer. That's a bummer to
Yeah,
hear that the final podium experience was less than thrilling for some of the people in those divisions because, well, like you said, you guys worked so hard and you were like literally the whole thing was like, "Hey, do you wanna congratulations on your win via the open. Do you wanna come
yeah,
out to Madison where we'll honor you?"
totally. And watch the other athlete, like the elite. Oh, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like I could go on and on about it, but yeah, it's
Can I ask a question? You sort of like touched upon this at the very beginning of this show, but it just is a part of your story that I'm curious about that probably will lend a little bit more context to you growing up with your disability. But you said that you became blind when you were 5 as a part of what was happening with your brain cancer. So you were diagnosed with
yes.
like a pediatric type of a brain cancer. Is that what was going on?
Right, right. So at the age of 5, I was diagnosed with an astrocytoma. So the tumor was in the center of the brain and had it actually grown to fill most of the cavity. And so I went into emergency surgery at the age of 5. So I had a full craniotomy. And I don't know if yeah, you can kind of see it, but the scar goes from one ear all the way to the other. And I'm sure you can only imagine. And at the time, I was so young and didn't know what was happening. And as I got older, my mom said, "Do you want to know what they did?" And she explained it to me. And I thought, sounds like it's right out of a horror movie. And so it was attached to my hypothalamus, optic nerves, and pituitary glands. So it messed up a lot of things, took away my vision. I'm actually in remission. So
Okay.
I have been for 20 years. And
Hey.
yeah,
Great.
like it is great. And they couldn't take the rest out, or else I would have been 100% blind because it's attached to my optic nerves.
Oh, so they
Um,
knew that going in, they knew that they were gonna
yes,
leave you partially blind. Got it, got it.
yes, and it was a tough decision, right? Because the surgeon either makes the decision, okay, we're going to remove all of it, or we're going to remove part of it. And then shortly after, I had 64 weeks of chemotherapy.
64 weeks. Oh my god, at 5 years old. Holy
Yeah,
moly. How did they find it? Were you having, like, wonky symptoms or
yeah. Another great question. So I was so young, so I wasn't able to actually voice what was happening. Right? You're
Sure.
not able to. So when you lay down, the pressure is more, I guess, is worse on the brain when you're lying down, and then when you get up, it's better because the pressure goes away. And then I was throwing up a lot, and I was taken to the doctors, and they were like, "She has the flu or she has a cold." And my mom was like, "She doesn't have a temperature, so this is really weird." Back and forth. Long story short, she ended up taking me to Children's Hospital, and then they did an X-ray, and then they said the tumor is filling the entire cavity. We need to do emergency surgery. Please call family, loved ones, because we're not sure if she's gonna make it.
Oh, for God's sake.
And it's pretty hard for a mom to hear. I was like, "Oh, that's like it's tough, right?"
Yeah.
And yeah, like call my brother and sister, call my dad, like call people now because we're gonna put her under, and then do what we can. And I was really lucky, I have to say.
Yeah, and
Uh,
good on your mom too, because that is like for what it's worth, like, toddlers throw up all the time, and you're kinda just like, "Meh, what's going on? What germs are
Right.
coming home today?" Or,
yeah,
"What did they eat?" Or whatever, and so that's terrifying. Holy
yeah,
moly, from every
Well,
angle, and from what you went through.
yeah.
what's your
Oh,
family think about this CrossFit journey you're on? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, full support. I think it's amazing. Sometimes I almost can't believe how far I've gotten. So in 2021, I had, I think it was 6 brain surgeries
What?
in 2021, and I I don't know how I do it. People say it's resilience. Some people say it's determination. Some people say it's strength. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to get back. My first question after all of my surgeries was, when they're like, "Do you have any questions about anything?" Yeah, when can I get back to CrossFit? Like, when can I get
Ah,
back training? Right. And so my brother and sister have always been there, full support, 100%. They are so proud. Again, they show so much support and they're all for it.
And I'm convinced women are just infinitely stronger than men. I I
there's
rip I ripped my hands the other day doing pull-ups. I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm done for a week." Like,
Oh,
no
man.
no more workouts for me, and, you're having surgeries, and then you're right back at it. So
oh my
that's
God.
it's amazing.
For sure. And that was like, Sarah, that was not long ago. Like to have 6 surgeries in 1 year anywhere, let alone on your brain, and then not 2 years later, stand on the podium. I mean, this is like people heal from this stuff for a lifetime, and you're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I should probably get back to training." Like, it's
Yeah,
crazy. It's wild.
and it's so funny because, people are like, how do you do that?" And, like, what do you do? Like, do you have some sort of, like, therapy? And I'm like, "The only therapy is up here and in here," right? So, you have to have a really strong heart, because your mind is very powerful and it will tell you things and it will tell you not to do things, and you can choose whether to listen to your head or your heart, and, for me, it's my goal is to inspire those to be motivated. So, if you're feeling tired or if you're having a bad day or if you are living with any sort of disability, I encourage you. And it's funny because I watch CrossFit's reels that they post of whoever talking, whether it's Greg or somebody else or just inspiring people. And they talk about inclusion and about never giving up. And I'm like, oh, I hear you. I've lived it.
Yeah. And how do you feel knowing that now you truly are one of those figureheads for others, specifically other adaptive athletes? Like you're that person now that they see and can be like, "Oh, she could do it, I could do it," or "She's not giving up. I should head to the gym and train today." Like that's you now. It's you.
Right, right. Yeah, it, it's amazing, and it's so funny that you asked that because I did meet a bunch of athletes, and I was so fortunate to meet them, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like we see your medal, like right, it's a big clunky heavy thing around your neck, and we it, you're going up to them and saying, "Oh, can I get a picture with you?" And me forgetting that I'm the athlete, right? And so it is very humbling, and actually a little girl came up to me and asked for my signature and asked for a picture. And,
Oh,
I am happy to do those things. I am happy to again inspire those to be motivated to keep going and push through whatever you think
yeah.
you're going through. Yeah, it's difficult. So
So what is next for you? Like, are you coming for that first place spot? Is training
you
back
betcha.
to usual? Okay, we're
You,
no
you,
wasting no time.
you betcha. Yeah, Kyle's got me on. Well, he's gonna get me on a training program pretty soon here, and we're just gonna work hard and push and yeah, give everything I got. So
Yay.
Hey, how you were introduced to me from Grace, who Nikki, I'm not even sure I told you this before the show, but Grace is with the PFAA,
Oh,
right,
great.
and
yes,
I had met Grace in Madison, and goes, "Hey, I've got somebody who should come on your show and connect us." How do you know Grace? How'd you guys meet?
yeah. So it's funny. I don't know if you guys know Jessie Smith.
Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
yeah, of
She
course.
yeah
Yeah.
she was in the teams and she did fantastic. And anyways, I was sitting beside her, and then Grace was on my other side. And I think during the time I was, I think I was wearing like either an athlete tag or I had my medal on, one of the things. And so it's kind of like, oh, hey, and like, what division were you in, or what category, or I see you came third, or whatnot. And so I introduced myself, and Grace introduced herself, and I think at the time it was so busy because we were on the field watching the elites, and it was so busy, and we were like looking for somebody to try and either get somewhere that was a little bit more away from the crowd or somewhere that was closer because I couldn't see. And we just ended up shuffling our way kind of into the bleachers and ended up being beside Grace, thank goodness, because she's a wonderful lady. Wonderful thing that she's done and started. And I explained to her kind of the whole shebang of what my experience was. And she said, "Yeah, I'm gonna connect you with this guy named John and Nikki, and he makes these memes and these reels." And I said, "Oh, of course,
Oh, who
everybody
that
knows that
is.
guy." Yeah,
Oh, that guy.
it's so funny. Every morning I open my phone and there's one, and I just chuckle. I just chuckle to myself. But yeah, we just started talking, and she said, "Oh, let me give you my info, and I'll take yours, and we'll connect, and hopefully we can get you on a call." And here we are.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
she's the nicest. I met with them a week or so ago to talk about some of the stuff they're doing with the athletes, and to their credit, they're discussing, should they be taking on adaptive as part of the PFAA, and where they were asking questions whether I thought they should do that or not, and what that would look like, and it's obviously it's a very complex issue that they clearly don't have not decided everything they're going to be doing as a group, but kudos to them for going after it and trying to meet athletes like yourself and learn about your experience so they can apply that. Just really, really cool, I thought.
Yeah. 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 And it's just interesting to see the way the elites are treated versus the athletes with disabilities. And it's just like I just thought, man, this is there's something's wrong here. Like there's something missing, or there's people missing, or there's help missing. And like you said, John, like if I'm another voice, I'll be another voice to be heard, right?
Mm.
Because yeah, it's not fair. And yeah.
I would honestly like to see them. I hate using the term break it off, but give you your own competition, because I hate that the adaptive athletes don't get a semifinals and a quarterfinals. And
Right.
like, I mean, kudos to you for finishing third, but you're having to compete against however many are in your division over 4 events, which is a really hard way to test the fittest on earth, where you'd really like to see a kind of a longer competition and really kind of sort out who's the best, and whatever that goes along with that. And then to your point, if you are able to have your own live competition, then you can get a much more games like experience, but also make it in line with what the viewership looks like or the attendance looks like. You have,
Right.
I don't know Nick, you have any idea how many people went to the games? 100,000, 50,000?
Oh,
Like, I have
yeah.
Whole
no idea.
bunch.
Yeah,
Whole
yeah, I have
bunch.
no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 5 days and it's packed every day. So
Yeah.
it's a lot. And so I guess the point is like you can generate a lot of revenue for the elite athletes with that many people. And so the question would be, if you can run your own event for adaptives and let the revenue decide how much is going to the athletes, and sponsors are obviously filling in, and you get more unique sponsors probably for an adaptive competition. Like, to your point, you were wanting to qualify for the Paralympics. Maybe they would want to be involved in some sort on.
Yeah.
So I think it could bring a lot of unique opportunities for athletes like yourself to meet people within the field, and it, from Paralympic committee and wherever, that could be really, really special, where you don't get the time or even the effort
Yeah.
in an elite games situation.
Right.
So
I think I like the idea more and more. The more when I first heard it, I was like, I don't know, because I want everything to be on an even playing field for all athletes. But then
Right.
the more arguments I hear for separating out having an elite competition, having an adaptive competition, and having a age group competition. And I even wonder if the team competition should be its own
maybe.
thing. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, well, first of all, it gives me more cool competitions to watch. And second of
Yeah.
all, resources to your point, John. But third of all, I think it could be a really great opportunity to train CrossFit fans to get hype about all these divisions, 'cause it's not really common knowledge that you can go to the thing and get super stoked on 5 days of just this one division. I feel like as a community, we're almost like, we've been a little bit trained to be like, "Okay, the full broadcast is only for the individuals." So, like, I'm not even familiar with the names in the adaptive or the teen or the age group categories. Like, I don't know who those people are. Are their events kinda similar? Like, I don't really know because I've never really paid attention to it. Like, giving it its own highlighted spot kind of could train our community to be like, "Oh, shit, there's, like, more cool CrossFit I can watch at different times of the
Yep.
year, and I can be just as invested in these people, and I can learn their names, and I can follow them on Instagram, and I can, like, have be a favorite over here and a favorite over there." And, like, I don't think our community really knows that that is how to approach these other divisions
Yeah.
because we just haven't had that opportunity yet. So it could be a
Yeah.
really neat time for that too.
It would likely also get other affiliates to consider training their coaches to train adaptive athletes, to
Mhm.
have adaptive classes. Like
Mhm.
when I went to Wilwad, forgive me for how I'm going to say this, but it's kind of hard to watch. Like when you first start watching, you're not quite sure what you're looking at because it doesn't look
Right.
like a traditional competition. Like
Right.
everybody snatches differently and everybody rope climbs differently because they all have different adaptation and
Sure.
impairments. And but after a couple of hours of watching, then you're starting to figure out what's happening. And that then like I've obviously like kind of a creative brain. So then I'm like my brain's firing of like what could I do at my own gym? What
Mhm.
what implements could I be using? What equipment should we be using? Like we have adaptive classes and I'm sitting there going, man, we're missing some stuff that we could be doing on a weekly basis. And so I think, the more the stories get out and the more people see it, I think it could really build out a community that is growing, but not at the pace that it could. And if CrossFit
Yeah.
wants to get this explosive growth they're talking about getting, which is going from 3 million CrossFitters is the number they say now to 30 million CrossFitters,
Mhm.
you're not gonna be able to fill that in with elite athletes.
Mhm.
You have to fill that in with old people like me and adaptive
Blind people
athletes.
like me.
And
Yep.
yeah, and so that
Yep.
means you're gonna have to go out to places where there are people with impairments and bring them in, and so to your point, like, Paralympians are a great place, the VFA is another one where you find a lot of people have impairments that need fitness, and I think the more they build this out, the more we could draw, people in and really
Yeah.
build a really special community.
And think
Mhm.
about the ripple effect too. Like, think about all the sort of like tangential communities that could partially identify with, other
Yeah,
divisions that are really, like, put into the spotlight. Like, I think about our friends over at Battle Cancer who are offering all sorts of programs to train coaches on how to help people who have been going through treatments, and a lot of those people come out with impairments or end up in some sort of division in and of themselves because of their experiences. And that that could really open a door to just so many more folks believing that they could do this, which is going to call for more coaches who are properly trained to help them through
Mhm.
that journey.
yeah. It'll build out a ton of little stuff, like
Yeah.
Adapt Products is like the Rogue Fitness of
Yeah.
adaptive gear, right?
Yeah, they're
But
crushing
imagine
it.
yeah, but imagine if this built out and they actually became the size of Rogue Fitness.
That would
Or
be
if
insane.
yeah, or if companies like Rogue said, "You know what? Maybe we need to get into this sport. Maybe we need to help adapt products to build out their gear."
Yeah, maybe we just
And
need to
now it's
sponsor those athletes.
maybe, yeah, maybe they need to sponsor some athletes. I mean, I guess that's the point is like little things that could build out and you look over the history of CrossFit, all these little companies, they started small, and Fit Aids as an example,
Mhm.
and are now are worldwide through the kind of the power of CrossFit. Imagine if we could do that for some of these companies where you're looking for gear to help athletes that they can't find anywhere else. Like
Yeah.
it's the amazing ripple effect is something to look forward to if it's done right. But
Well, and
fingers crossed.
Yeah, and I totally hear you, John, when you talk about like sponsoring athletes with disabilities. Like, how cool would that be? I don't think I've yet to see like a big company, like for example, like GoRuck or
Mm.
PRVN or like I don't know, like they've got all these big athletes, but it would be really cool to see a company sponsor an athlete with a disability, whether that's Fit Aid
Yeah.
or not. Yeah.
Well, in the CrossFit space, Amy Bream, who's in the lower division, is sponsored by Nike, I believe. I'd have to
Okay.
verify that with her, but I'm pretty sure that's true. But she's one of the very few, to your point.
Yeah.
Like it's and I would love to see more because I think it would put a real spotlight on the sport, and I think it would be money well spent and well invested by any company who decided to do it. It's I mean, it's a real shame when you think about it that like even Noble, the premier sponsor, doesn't have, to my knowledge. If I'm given bad press on Noble for no reason, somebody needs to message me and tell me. I just don't think they do. But
I don't think they do either. Yeah, it's and like yeah, it's just like there's so many companies out there that can and they should.
Yeah.
well, I'm hopeful. I think it's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
Genuinely do. I'm like I said at the top of this, I've had moments during this entire transitional, what has felt like a transitional year, where I've been disappointed in the way CrossFit handled it. But I do think they're putting thought into this and they're trying to do it right. I genuinely believe that. Now they could prove me wrong, and I'm going to be back on here 3 months from now just bitching up a storm. But
Hope
for
not.
right this second, I genuinely believe they're trying to do the right thing, and that's why we haven't heard anything yet. So
Yeah. And to your earlier point, they're doing the right thing thanks to people like you, Sarah, who are truly paving the way, dealing with the stuff that's not perfect today to make
Mhm.
it better for the future, which is not
Oh,
easy to do.
oh, totally. And it is for the people who think that they don't have a voice or a chance or an opportunity in this world. It really is. It's so important to include those people. Like we talk about so much about inclusion and acceptance. You gotta include everybody, right? You gotta include the whole shebang. So
yeah,
Someday you're gonna look back on that generic camo t-shirt and you're gonna be like, "You started this,
yeah,
and
yes,
now
yeah.
look at where we are."
Oh, and it's I'm glad you say that because that's the plan, right? Whether that's me getting involved with another committee or involved with even CrossFit, right?
Sure.
Whatever that may be, yeah, I'm gonna remember this.
Uh-huh.
Remember you said that. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
well, we have faith in you, Sarah. Well,
yeah.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining the show tonight. We're so
Yeah,
appreciative
so
of you taking
fun.
some time and
Oh,
chatting with us. And I hope that Kyle takes it easy on you, but I also hope he doesn't because I want to see you at the top of the podium. So just do
Mhm.
whatever he says. He's the boss.
thanks, John. Yeah, he's a good guy.
I'm not letting him program for me though. I've seen what he
Yeah.
makes Emily do. I'm like, no chance. I'm not
No
doing it.
way.
Sometimes Em asks me to join in with her on her workouts, and I'm like, oh, okay. She's
I
like,
Yeah.
just
guess.
so I can like, you can be the rabbit and I can catch you. I'm like, you're gonna catch me in the first 30 seconds, but okay,
If you want.
whatever. I guess.
Emily's kind of fit, I guess. Like
Mm.
little,
I'd be
she's a
like,
little
"I
fit.
need a 10-minute head start, then you can try to catch me."
Yeah,
I need like a 2 week
yeah.
head start.
Yeah, right?
Seriously.
Give me some of your abs.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
Yeah.
exactly. All right. Well, thanks again, Nikki. Great seeing you as always. Hope the baby sleeps in for
Me
you.
too.
Yeah, well, if he doesn't, at the age he is now, you can shake him. That's a law. You're allowed it too.
Oh,
So
amazing.
actually, I don't know if that's probably not a thing. So don't do that. Don't
Oh,
shake your
okay.
baby.
Definitely
Yeah.
stop. Everybody stop shaking babies. No, well, he's at the age
Exactly.
now where I'm like, I could just put on like a Disney movie and I can go back to sleep. So that's
Yeah.
kind of nice.
You can shake Matt though, and Matt can get up with him.
That's
So
really what I should do.
that you can do.
I do think it's legal to shake your
You
husbands.
can absolutely
Oh,
shake your husbands,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
yes. Very
All
good.
right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us this evening, and we will chat with you guys soon.